We come back to the last talk of the festival, and well, it's now the time to welcome Pierre. We are gonna speak with Pierre from Zero Waste Europe, and we are gonna see what are the plans for this continent. No, because we need to consider that every year 88 million tons of food are wasted in the European Union, and that is approximately 173 kilos per person, according to the European Parliament. So this is only not food waste, but also the amount of resources that contribute to climate change. And for this reason, today we're going to speak about the state of food waste in Europe with Pierre. So let's welcome him. I can see you're already in here.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Pierre. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks a lot for the introduction.
Yeah, thank you so much to you for being here with us today. Well, it's really important that we have somebody from one of the biggest entities in Europe focused just on zero waste.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I look forward to a great talk.
Yeah, me too. So, well, we will be interested to know also about what Zero Waste Europe does. So now I'm going to leave you on the stage. You can share your screen.
Yeah, it should work, right?
Yeah, okay. Great. So I leave you on the stage and I see you at the end of your talk. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thanks. No, okay. Oops. So, hi everyone. And again, thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk. My name is Pierre Condamine. I work for Zero Waste Europe, which is an NGO, and I work as a waste policy officer. I'm first going to start by describing a bit Zero Waste Europe and what we do briefly. I will try to remain brief. So we are an NGO active since 2010. We are based in Brussels, and we coordinate a network of 31 NGOs in 27 countries in Europe. Our aim is to achieve, of course, Zero Waste Europe and to eliminate waste from our society. And we are also the European branch of an international alliance that is fighting against incineration. We have three main scope of action. We support NGOs, the 31 NGOs I mentioned before, but we also act to change European policies, that is basically lobbying at the European level, and we mentor cities towards zero waste transition. This is a small example of what we do at the European Union. This was a plastic dragon that we put in front of the EU institutions when there was the debate around the single-use plastic directive that bans specific plastic items. But of course, we do not only do giant stages of dragon, we also write papers. And as I said, we also try to push cities to adopt zero waste strategies. And in that sense, we coordinate a program. And so far, we have 400 municipalities that joined the zero waste commitment, that committed to go zero waste. Our national members do the work on the ground to push those cities to go zero waste. And they often show the best results in terms of waste management, but also waste prevention in Europe. And the last thing I can add is that this is not only valid for Europe. Through our international alliance, there are also similar programs around the world. And for example, there are really good zero waste cities in Asia. You can find great examples of zero waste cities. Now, small introduction of what is zero waste. It's not only about reducing the waste that you produce at home. It's more a systemic vision of responsible production, consumption, and reuse, making sure that we do not use too much resources. We know that the overshoot day the day where we are supposedly not allowed to consume resources is earlier and earlier every year, and zero waste is a way to fight this. When we anyway extract resources and make products, we want to make sure that they last longer, that you can repair them, that you can reuse them. And when in the end it's wasted, well, you want to make sure that it's recycled so that the value is kept, so that if I put plastic in the bin, I can recycle it to make new plastic. On the other end, we want to avoid everything that is disposal, like incineration and landfilling, that just lose the value of the waste and also create pollution, toxic pollution, CO2 emissions. And so this is illustrated by the zero waste hierarchy. You can see at the top, you have best use, refuse, rethink, design, reduce, reuse. This is really not generating waste, it's waste prevention. Then the second half of the pyramid is about recycling, dealing with the waste we have the best way we can. And in the end, unacceptable is, as I said, landfilling and incineration that are really negative for the environment. But food waste is our topic today, and food waste is also a very specific type of waste. And in that sense, we developed food waste hierarchy as well to help us guide our decisions. And again, the best thing is prevention, meaning that the food we produce, we eat it. But that does not only happen. And then you can have other options like food recovery, repurposing. For example, if you have, like strawberries about to be lost, then instead of putting it in the bin, you try to make jam with it, for example. And then when there is food that is wasted, that you cannot use, you have to make sure that it's properly treated, recycled, and this often means composting, so that the food waste is turned into nutrient for the soil and so that it feeds the soil. But as I said, the first option is not to produce waste at all, because food waste, especially food waste, is a really key issue in a sense that it's it represents many issues. It's economic because there is a lot of value that is lost because we produce food waste. For Europe, it's 143 billions per year. It's also environmental because we know that food waste accounts for 8 to 10% of the greenhouse gas emission. It's also a social issue because we waste food in Europe, but not everybody has access to a complete meal every second day. And then if you look at not only Europe, but the rest of the world, it's an ethical issue because almost 1 billion people are suffering from undernourishment. So we need to tackle this. If you look at Europe specifically, you can see that's 88 million tons per year that are wasted. It's about 20% of all the food that is wasted. Per habitant per year, it's 173 kilograms. I put equivalent because this is a calculation that takes into account all the food that is wasted, even the food that is wasted before it gets into my hand, your hand, the citizen's hand. You have food waste happening at the production level, transportation level, processing level, and so this is a broad calculation. And the last figure I think is the most shocking to me is that you have 100 million hectares used for wasted food, so used to grow food that is going to be wasted. And this is twice the size of Spain that we use to grow food that is about to be wasted. So indeed, huge issue. Just to explain a bit better what I said about the fact that food waste is everywhere, you can see here that only 53%, it's half, but it's not everything. Only 53% of the food waste is happening at the consumer level. So when we have the food, but you can see that 47% is happening after or before this, when the food is being grown, when big companies are processing the food, when the restaurants are using the food, when there is transportation. And so to tackle food waste, we need to really have a holistic vision and tackle food waste at every stage for this. Like always see the whole picture, the big picture, addressing waste, food waste from the moment it's produced to the moment we eat it. Now, the background on tackling this issue is the Sustainable Development Goals developed by the UN. The 12th one is about responsible consumption and production. And there is this goal, SDG 12.3, that aims to cut food waste by half by 2030. And it's, I think, an ambitious goal. But when we look at it, we see that it only concerns retail and consumer. And that means, compared to what I said before, that it only tackles one part of the food supply chain when it comes to food waste. Then after, you can see that there are mention of food waste along the supply chain at the harvest level, but it's not in the 50% target. At the EU level, there is basically the same target that is in the Waste Framework Directive. But as you can see, it's a contribution to this goal, meaning that the mention to this target is not binding. Basically, the legislation says it's great if we cut food waste by 50%, but if you don't do it, you won't have any fine, or you won't be, you won't get a fine, and the European institution cannot blame you in a way. Member states are not compelled to do so. And so we need to make this binding. But now things are changing a bit at the European level, and I'm going to explain this in detail. Because at the European level, you have probably heard of the European Green Deal, which is an ambitious strategy about climate change. But it's a strategy, an action plan, and it's divided in many, many, many topics. On food waste, there are two key strategies: the farm to fork strategy and the new circular economy action plan. And I'm going to describe those three a little bit more in detail. So first, the European Green Deal is an action plan. What I mean by this is that it's not binding. It's an ambition that the European institutions are putting forward, saying that that's what we want to achieve. But if there was only this plan, well, then not much would happen, because it's not a legislation, it's only an ambition. But it aims for climate neutrality by 2050, which is quite ambitious, and mobilize a lot of money, as you can see, 1 trillion euros. But what is, I think, the key aspect of this plan is that it offers a cross-sectoral approach on environmental issues. And this is not unprecedented, but really a new effort from the EU institutions, because before, many topics were tackled, but in silos. So you had to fight climate change, you had to make a better agriculture, you also had to produce renewable energy, but all of this was separated. And what the effort the Green Deal is doing is that putting all of this together. And of course, when you put all of this together, this means a lot of plan and ambition and strategy that I'm not going to describe, of course, all of them, but I'm going to focus only on the one that are relevant to food waste. Is the one about circular economy that I mentioned, and the one on farm to fork. So the farm to fork strategy is, as it's in the title, it's about farm to fork. So the whole food supply chain, how we produce food in a sustainable way. And it shows that there are links between many things related to agriculture. For example, there is, if you want to have sustainable agriculture, you also need to take into account the impact on health that agriculture might have, but also animal welfare, for example. So the farm to fork strategy is trying to have a holistic vision on food and on food systems. When it comes to food waste and food loss, there is again this this target of reducing food waste by 50% by 2030. But as you can see below, this is binding, and it's supposed to be binding. It's not binding yet, but it's below, you can see it's a key action. By 2033, there will be an EU proposal to have those food waste reduction targets that will be binding. This is really important because previously it was not binding. Now it is becoming binding. It's not yet, but it's the plan to make it binding. Then there's the new Circular Economy Action Plan. And of course, it is linked because circular economy is about not producing waste, recycling, and of course, food waste. We want to avoid it through a circular economy. And if we produce it, we want to compost it, recycle it so that it still has some use. Basically, what you will see in the new Circular Economy Action Plan is basically the reference to the same targets, and also key action on waste reduction targets. This is a bit confusing because those two plans offer kind of the same option on food waste, but from consistency perspective, it's likely that the farm to fork strategy will deliver the food waste reduction target. And so this is what's happening at the EU level. And on this, of course, NGOs are playing a role on this. I'm not going to share a lot in detail about this, but as I said, we do not only put Plastic Dragon in front of the institution, we also send feedback and letters, such as this letter, to the commissioner, European Commissioner in charge of this, to ask for an ambitious action on food waste within the farm to fork strategy. But our work would be incomplete if what we ask for at the European level is not backed by action at the local level. So we also play a role in this. This is, for example, a case study that we've developed on the city of Bruges in Belgium. And the city of Bruges implemented an ambitious food waste reduction strategy. And you can see, among many things, that the main hospital reduced food waste by 43%, which is not so far from the 50% target that we've seen. You can also see that prevention is more economic than waste management, because if you put €1 to prevent food waste, you save €8 in managing this food waste. And they identify that the next step is the retail sector, where only 10% of the food is rescued. And so this is a case study on one city that we've seen. But when it comes to food waste, we need to have a holistic solution. We need to have resilient food system. As I said, you cannot tackle topics independently. And when it comes to food waste, you cannot only tackle food waste, you also need to have a holistic vision around food waste. So you need to put in place sustainable food systems. And sustainable food systems are, for example, short food supply chain, where you have producers to consumers, sales of vegetables. You also have reduced health issues because the food you produce is better grown, it's organic, but also because you have less packaging. And we know that there is a lot of chemicals, toxic chemicals in packaging that can leak then into your body. So you need really to have this holistic vision, systemic vision, where with a short food supply chain, for example, you buy food directly to farmers, and so they get a higher revenue, but they are also, since there is no transportation, they can sell you the food without packaging. And this is this kind of systemic thinking that we need to have. And this is just a small graph that we showed, showing that even though packaging is supposed to help preventing food waste, it's not always the case. Of course, it helps, but over-packaging can also lead to food waste when, for example, you have a packaging that forces you to buy a quantity of food that you would not want otherwise. For example, I want to buy 3 apples because I know I won't eat more than 3 apples, but the packaging has 6 apples in it. So I'm forced to buy, in a way, 6 apples, but I will only eat 3, and so I will waste the 3 remaining. So that's the kind of link that we need to make. And in regard to this, I just want to end, because it's almost the end with a few tips to fight food waste. For example, carry food containers with you, make lists, look for recipes that use food about to be wasted, use food saving apps. Too Good To Go is a good one, but Olio is also a good one, and it's free. And also, if you waste food anyway, make sure to recycle, compose the food. But what is important is that individual actions are key. But as I said before, we need a systemic change. And individual action won't be enough for this. So if you really want to change things, then you can try to join a community-supported agriculture scheme where you buy foods from local producer, and so they know they will be able to sell the food. But you can also find a local group that is pushing for changes at the local level, or get involved in organization lobbying for systemic change at the local level, at the national level, or at the European level. And I'm not saying this because I work for one, but because I think that's where we can make a real change as well. Because individual changes are necessary, but they won't be the solution. And I would add that the responsibility should not be only put on citizens to change everything. There should be wider policies, legislation that will enact, that will make this system change happen. That will be all. Thank you.
So, hi, Pierre. Thank you so
Hi.
much. Yeah, it has been awesome. Like really, really insightful. Yeah, a lot of information. One action is not enough, but also like if everybody commit to make changes, and we as society we realize also about the power we have as a group, it's really important also to change the system. Of course, governments has their side, but we as communities and citizens also have our part to do. And I think food is one of the most simple and easiest things to do when you start your zero waste life, because it's something you do every day, a few times a day. So every time actually you are going to eat, the way you eat, it influences, no? So it's simple actions that you can take from tonight, no? Yeah, and I also saw that you mentioned about the health issue. Yeah, definitely if we buy more local and seasonal, it's going to influence in a long run also in our health and the systems, and also as you put the example of when saving €1 on waste we save actually €8. Also in health this will save a lot of money because the health of the people will improve. So at the end it's systematic, it's influencing everywhere. Yeah. So, well, we have a few questions in the chat from the audience. So let me come first here. So do you think that large companies will change their policy when they throw away leftover food? So how do you think like companies will maybe adapt to these plans? Not only maybe local producers, but how will the big corporations behind also the food chain, how they will react? What do you think is going to be in a long term this sector?
Yeah, well, there are already several examples in Europe of legislation that forces or allow company to, not get rid of the food that is about to be wasted, to give it. And so, yeah, I hope they will do it. It's happening already in a few countries, but we also see those horrible, pictures of supermarket just putting the food outside and putting like bleach on it so that people cannot eat it, and this is not okay. This needs to find a way, and I don't know if they will. I hope they will, and if they don't, I hope we'll have a legislation that will make this happen, because that's just not happening. But on the positive side, we developed a case study on a company that's named Phoenix. There's a French company that is helping supermarkets to reduce food waste, not only by, selling what is about to be wasted, but also through improving their processes, so that to make sure that they know when the food is about to be wasted, or they store it in a way that prevent food waste. And so there are solutions already in place, and
Yeah.
I'm optimistic.
I think also like the way big supermarkets are planned, no, like the whole strategy and the design behind is always to show the amount of food, that there is always everything full, and that it doesn't mean that they are selling everything, but they need to give this image, no, and at the end, it's not a solution, and this is something also that maybe need to change, and we don't need so many huge supermarkets, but we need more small shops around the neighborhoods, no, and with the real quantity that people are consuming at the end. Yeah. So we have we have here other interesting question, like in your opinion, do you think like the European Green Deal will be enough?
That goes much beyond than food waste. That's really hard to reply, honestly. I think it is a first step, but as I said, it's a plan. It's strategic plan, call it what you want, but it's only a plan. And we know that with this kind of ambition, the devil is always in the detail. And so it will help, it will solve something if member states are committed to implement it, and if the European Union not only publish the plan, but also concretely implement the plan through legislation, through binding legislation. So I think if we really respect the level of ambition that is in the plan right now, I think it will change a lot of things. But that's the part that is not confirmed. We need follow-up on this. We need actions, concrete action and legislation from the EU and from the member states, the countries, to achieve this.
And there are already some more specific plans toward this, or we are still too soon to say that we have some actions that are going to be taken, for example, in the next year?
Well, this plan is for these mandates of the institution, so it's 5 years. It's been adopted last year, and we can see already that now many plans, such as the Circular Economy Action Plan, the Farm to Fork Strategy, are being, taken forward. But again, they are plans. But we can see now in some discussions that we have with the European Commission that they are planning really to implement this through binding legislation. But yeah, it still needs to be adopted, of course. Yeah. So I would say for now, from what I see, I'm rather optimistic, but it's easy to be optimistic when we're just talking words. But when it comes to adopted legislation, it's ambitious, it's different thing. But on this, we need everybody to push member states and the institutions to really act on this.
Yeah. So here we have another question that's a bit related. So how basically are supermarket chains being held accountable if there is no legislation yet for them?
Honestly, I do not really know, because this depends from one country to another. Yeah. So you will need to check with your national law. Unfortunately, I don't know the law for 27 countries in the European Union.
Yeah. I think also, as you say, it depends a lot on the country. For example, here in Germany, well, I don't know a specific plans in all the details, but something I have seen in difference where I'm from is that here things that are gonna get bad, or the expiration date is near to it, they put it cheaper. And I think this is really great because the food is completely healthy, and people just buy it. And you see like the boxes, usually they have a space or a special fridge in every supermarket that you can go there and see the things that are expiring on that day or the day after. But it's great also sometimes to see, okay, so I need something, and then let's see what is going to be wasted. But in the other side, for example, I'm from Spain, and there is completely forbidden to give the food away. So there is nothing like, no plans, nothing like this that you can find in Germany of these fridges. And actually, when they have this food, sometimes even they throw it before the expiration date and they log it. So people maybe that might go there because they have no food or they need more for their family, like people in real need, instead of selling it cheaper or giving it away, they log it and don't allow people to take it. And this is actually really sad. As you say, depends a lot on the country and on the legislation. And I think this is something that maybe Europe need to push a bit harder to force the European countries to commit, no?
Yeah, but this is often an issue of health, because most of those supermarkets, if they give food that is expired and someone is sick,
no, yeah,
I think that's the issue. But the real issue, as I said, is that we should not have a system that allows food to go up to the expire dates. We should optimize this, because this is the last resort. It's the system produces waste, and with giving the food that is about to be wasted, we just fix a bit the symptom, but we do not change the whole system that is producing waste. And that's the issue, and we need to see upstream how to prevent the food to be wasted, from being wasted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, as you say, it's the health thing, but what I'm referring is many times even the fresh things from the day, they throw it away. They even don't offer at the end of the day cheaper, nothing like that. So, yeah, but I mean, simple solutions that can be implemented and that will help a lot at the end, no? That maybe making food cheaper at the end of the day or before expiring. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Pierre, this has been a really awesome talk. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for hosting the last session of the festival. It has been really awesome. Also, food waste is really important topic. So I really hope also our audience have enjoyed. So thank you so much. Well, I hope you also have enjoyed the festival.
Yeah, that was nice. Thanks to you. And yeah, good luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Pierre.